It is noon Eastern Time. It is Thursday, April 23rd. It is episode 5 of F&A featuring the Irish Dragon, Paul Felder. That's a state of Florida on my hat. Wishful thinking, perhaps. Good to have you guys back with us. You know, this has become sort of a staple of the quarantine. What's up, Sean? What's up, everybody? Luke, good to have you guys here. This has become a staple of my quarantine, my isolation. So it gives me a great chance to catch up with a really good egg in Paul Felder and obviously to talk about fighting. Hat backward like a savage for a little bit, Felix, but yeah, that's me walking around my house like just a slapdick that I am all day long. But I'm excited to talk some shop here. A lot of reports about the 9th of May. And potentially the UFC being back at that point in time. So that is obviously a very exciting thing. Let me grab my caffeine-free Diet Coke, right, for all the nutritionists out there. Oh, is that incredible? So your body recognizes that as sugar, Kenny Florian once told me. So it's not great to be drinking Diet Coke, but I try to limit it, but not too bad. We got the run in this morning. So, all right, hang on a second here. Why did I just lose that? All right. Sorry about the slow start today. What's up, Jay Colford? Good to see you. So we talked a lot about Ferguson Gaethje. We're going to talk a little bit about this rumored fight between Anthony Pettis and Donald Cerrone today. That is a rematch of a fight that happened back in the day, and it was a pretty quick fight at that. So we're going to get Paulie Felder's thoughts on that. Question coming in, are you going to Florida? I can't reveal that information, but I am hopeful that all of these May 9th reports are accurate. People asking how I'm doing. I'm doing okay. You know, I think no matter what your circumstances are, some days are better than others. I think for me, having children, having 3 kids at different ages, almost 2, 8, and 7, that's my reality in my world. So boredom has not been one of the conditions of the quarantine for us because there's just always something to do. There's always some piece of childcare. I know a lot of parents get sensitive when you refer to babysitting your own kids or childcare. It's fucking childcare, okay? And I'm doing about 105 hours a week right now, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. God love me. So that's been a challenge for us. I think for people who have older children, it can be even more difficult academically because it's a lot easier to do second grade homework, I think, for guys like me than 7th or 8th or 12th grade homework, heaven forbid. So there are a lot of different challenges that people are dealing with. You know, what's interesting for me is seeing a lot of my colleagues like Paul Felder and like Bruce Buffer coming out and saying no excuse not to be in the best shape of your life. And I'll admit, you know, I'm trying to put on muscle. I'm running almost every day. But there are a lot of people who don't have all these hours to themselves at their disposal, right? So thankfully, my kids haven't been too dependent upon us. But I'm just wishing everybody out there all the health and all the safety in the world. You know, every time I post about doing a UFC show, inevitably I hear from a respiratory therapist or two that either advises against it or gives me good thoughts and prayers and good energy. But, you know, I think maybe we're not entirely aware of the risk when we go back to work, but at some point we are going to have to go back to work, and that decision rests with every UFC employee, and they have made it very clear that it's an opportunity, it's an option to work. You can decline the show. As of now, I've accepted May 9th, and wherever that is, I will either fly there or drive there and try to put myself in a position to be distanced from others, but also to do a good job and do right by the fighters. So we're obviously very excited. We're chomping at the bit. I think the whole staff is just anxious to contribute at this point in time. It's not like we've just been sitting around on our asses. Many of you know who listen to the Anik and Florian podcast. I prepped about 60% of this show. So I did prep some of the fights that in theory would return again on May 9th. You know, we voiced a lot of stuff. So if Ferguson Gaethje ends up being the main event, there is some stuff in the can. But we're always working closely with the live production team, and we're always just trying to put ourselves in the best position to succeed. I mean, we've never had a perfect show, and people hear me say that all the time, but that's honestly the truth. You know, we have never had a perfect show. We probably never will. There's Paulie. All right. He's probably. You've been here just waiting, just listening to me
Just
fucking
waiting.
ramble, huh?
I'm waiting.
So you got to request to join the video, right? Because if I don't see your yo and there's a bunch of comments, then I was just assuming you're not there.
I don't know how to do that, John.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Well, hey, all is good now. We're not going to waste too much time on that. But so I didn't see your comment, and I can't text you because I'm using my phone for the IG Live. So it's great to see you. We appreciate you putting down the spinning bike for a few minutes to join us today.
You should have seen it today.
I saw the 30 minutes of sweat yesterday.
I did an hour today.
You got some matting down, so you're not completely offending the women that you live with.
Yeah, it's disgusting. When it was the carpet, I had a towel underneath of it, but towels just absorb sweat, and then that just goes down underneath of the towel.
Right.
So now we at least have that mat, and then I just wipe that mat off and spray everything and make it smell nice in here. The room still stinks. I have to open a window.
Oh, I'm sure it's disgusting.
I don't care. I have to do it, or I'm going to start punching holes in the walls soon. So
how's your foot? Have you been able to run again, or are you just focused on the bike for now?
I'm just focused on the bike because the weather here, I mean, you're in Florida, so sent us a message the other day. It was 80-some degrees down there. Hello?
Yeah, it's hot.
You got me?
Yeah, yep.
No, sorry, yeah. So here it's just been miserable. It's terrible. So running has not really been
Yeah, I was in full long sleeve sweatsuit out today, fucking pushing the stroller. I mean, just struggle town. We're talking, way north of 9-minute miles pushing the stroller. And the social distancing thing is very tricky when you have a stroller, because you would think people would get the fuck out of my way, but certainly not, So I'm having to take my son down curbs and up curbs because people won't get the fuck out of my way. So it ends up being maybe a more terrain-filled run than it otherwise would be. But well, it's good to see you as always, man. It's looking like May 9th. Again, nothing is confirmed, but it looks like the UFC is going to be back. So, it's funny when I text you in advance of our FNA chats because you always have something funny to say.
You got some time? It's
well, but I don't know what your schedule is going to be week to week with your daughter, and you have other interviews and obligations inevitably that come up. But again, I always like leading with how has the last week been, because it's crazy, dude. This is the 5th time we've sat down to do this, so it's day 41.
And this was just a fun filler for us for a couple weeks. We thought, let's get this thing going. You got the podcast, now we got this going. It's just something to kill some time. Well, now this is becoming a regular thing. Not because we wanted it to into something consistent, fortunately, because we get to hang out and chat. But
keep cutting out. It seems like every other week when I do this, somebody from the 484 just keeps trying to FaceTime me and haze me and
is that what that
chat.
is?
So yeah,
that happens to me. People try to call in.
Yeah. So I want to get to some of the tweets, because I did forget some of these last week, and I just wanted to make sure that the fans who take the time to actually ask you a question, maybe I could actually do my part and bring it your way. So there was a question last week about just how kind and congenial you seem to be, and it's a hard question for you to ask, but he asked it a couple times. He just wanted to know if there's anybody in this MMA space that you don't like. Not that you need to name names, but it just seems like you have a pretty good rapport with a lot of different people in the MMA world and don't have a lot of known enemies out there, so to speak.
Yeah, of course. Of course there's people that get under my skin. But I'm also the type of guy that's going to keep that to myself, because nothing good is going to come of that, because these aren't necessarily people that I'm able to fight that aren't in my division. So it's just going to cause shit that none of us need. But yeah, of course, I'm annoyed all the time. You know this because you're my friend and you actually work with me and see me. People only get to see snapshots of us, right? And how we are in life. So people think I'm either or, more than they probably know me that well. But man, at this point, things bother me. Even when I'm fist fighting somebody, I don't have to hate them to want to be better than them and outcompete them. When I'm in there, I do have a violent streak and a nasty side, and I use fighting, and I've used martial arts since I was 12 years old to kind of hone that. Right, that's why I got into that, because I knew that that's in me. It's a more extreme version would be Dexter, right, where he's secretly got this serial killer craziness, and his dad was like, "Oh shit, I see that in him. I got to get him into this." Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of like me without the killing part, but
Right.
you know, I need to fuck shit up every now and then, and that's just how I am.
Well, and you've had fights that have had different emotional backdrops. I mean, certainly the Hooker fight had an elevated sense of tension to us fans. The Barboza rematch is elevated because you're fighting a guy for a second time. Jordan DeSouza asked how you felt about the traditional greetings and the embrace you got in New Zealand, and how did that affect you mentally? For all of us watching that from afar, you and Hooker going nose to nose, just what was that all like, and how did it affect you mentally, if at all?
It didn't do anything negative, right? If anything, it made me more aware of what I was there to do, because we're in this traditional ceremony. It really made me feel that atmosphere of being in New Zealand and on that traditional ground. And it was fun, and it was a good distraction, but yet still kept me very focused on the task at hand, because I was there with Hooker, with his team. Israel was there. His coaches are there. I'm there with Duke, Craig, Daniel Wanderlei, you know, all those guys are there with me too. So it was Ian Laurie up doing the same thing together. So it didn't feel like war was about, you know, calm before the storm. That was getting all fake butthurt the whole time. You know what I mean? Like the whole back and forth. To me, it was all just lead up and nothing more than that. And I knew he wasn't gonna start some shit there. So, man, just think I was touching noses with about 50 to 60 people 2 months ago, John.
Isn't that amazing? And look where we are now, right?
Yeah.
What's amazing for me to think about, since you brought up COVID-19 sort of in a veiled way there, was we made the decision to pull my daughters from school on like Friday, March 12th or March 13th, whatever it was. And that ended up being the last day of school. And I just remember as a parent thinking, like, are we sending them today? You know, like my younger brother is telling me I'm fucking insane to send my kids to school. And so I think we pulled him. And
I did the same thing, by the way. Was it a Friday, you said?
Yes, exactly.
That's the same day we didn't send Ashling to preschool. I said, let's keep her home today. Boom. The next day, that following week, you know, it was 2 weeks for 2 weeks. And now, my God, that, you know, the over. Done.
Taxes. I have literally screened 14 fucking calls from this 484 number. So much so that if this continues, I'm going to fucking hop out of there. And, you know, I sound tougher than I am right now, probably, but like, this is really bothering me. Yeah. I mean, 15, 16 phone calls and texts and all this bullshit. So, yeah, not real happy.
You're going to jail,
that.
John. You're going to jail. You did something wrong.
So this Anthony Pettis, Donald Cerrone rematch, I just want to get a few more extended thoughts from you on it, because Donald Cerrone is a mixed martial arts mentor to you of sorts. I mean, you've referred to him as such. I know you hold him in such high regard, and Anthony Showtime Pettis is now your Rufus 4 teammate. Yeah. So I would imagine this one is sort of at the height of intrigue for you as a fan, as an analyst. How competitive a fight do you think it is now relative to the first meeting several years ago?
I think it's far more interesting, and I think it will be more competitive now, because these guys have also trained together. They've spent some time together. They know each other a little more than they did the first time that they met, you know, because Anthony did go to New Mexico for a little while. He wanted to just explore came back to Rufus Sport, but time there were him and Anthony long, I would say. But they also did like a military. These are two guys just that want to fight, want to get something on the books. But I mean, it was amazing that ultimately, you know, Anthony was able to attack the body, which we learned through the course of Donald's career is kind of a soft spot for him at times. And I think Anthony's going to come at a totally different approach this one. I don't know anything. I've talked to Duke, but I haven't talked game plan or anything like that about this. And we're all still in limbo on whether or not this is even going to happen, right? But that's a fight that they could fight 10 times. I'm watching every single time. I mean, those guys bring it and are so technical and at a point in their careers where, you know, there's a lot of implications here for these guys. Like, who's sticking around? Is Anthony, you know, there's been talks of him wanting to move on possibly. I know he doesn't have many fights left on his contract, unless this was a which I think I have some insight anything about that through Instagram and things like that here and there. But I don't know. But I love that fight. It's one I just sit back and I go get it, because Donald's, you know, a very old friend of mine, and Anthony's a current teammate and a good friend of mine as well. So it's like I hate these kind of fights.
Somebody just chiming in, Paul, let's see you throw hands at UFC Dublin. And again, I apologize for the fucking connection. I literally just screened 9 fucking FaceTime calls during your one answer right there. So I apologize if this thing all blows up. But in terms of Dublin, I know your appetite to compete there is healthy, but it just doesn't look like that's going to happen in 2020.
It's not going to happen, guys. It's literally not going to happen. I think Ireland just postponed events until September or later. So it's literally not gonna. I mean, maybe it'll happen with no audience, but what's the point of me wanting to fight in Dublin with no audience? If I'm going to go to Dublin to fight, I want to fight in front of the people. I want to fight in front of that crowd, and that's not happening for a long time. So if I'm going to fight, I just want it to be about the right opponent at this point. Because let's be honest, if I fight this summer, I'm probably not fighting in front of a crowd at all. I'm probably fighting either on, you know, the Lost Island, wherever this place is, or potentially, hopefully in Vegas when I come back. I'd like to wait until maybe things are functioning at the Apex before I come back. That's what, you know, what I would like to do. But I just got a message from my manager today that Sean had hit him up and wanted to know when I want to come back. So the wheels are turning, fellas.
Good. That's good. Well, that's very exciting. So you have called fights. Yeah, dude. I mean,
I won't show you this. I won't show you the keg right now, but
that's okay.
This is leaning
That's okay.
out.
So I think I'm taking a break from donuts, by the way, in terms
Me too,
of
buddy.
leaning out. So it just got out of control. So
my access to them slowed down a little because I wasn't doing so. You know, they're not. Vitamin boxes aren't just so that helped out. But I'll do all of them probably this weekend. And I'll probably. Yo, by the way, when this is all said and done, you got to tell me who this is calling you.
I'm going to FaceTime him as soon as we're done. By the way, shout out to the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier. Because of my shit feed today, I haven't been able to see some of the back and forth between you and some of the fans there. But my wife will order donuts to try to get something to stick with my son because he's a picky eater, you know. And so maybe they won't send powdered donuts, but they'll send a box of Entman's fucking crumb top donuts, you know?
The crumb top ones, man. I forget about those ones. Underrated donut.
Right. I mean, you don't need weed to fucking eat 6 of those in a minute. You know what I mean? So
but you have some, you'll eat 12 of them.
Right. So there aren't any donuts in the house right now, and I really got to try to shut it down here because, again, I'm not getting any sort of caloric deficit. I'm working out almost every day, but probably putting on weight, you know? So we have another question here. Who do you think Conor, and this is from Jacob Shore, is most likely to face next in the UFC? It's hard to envision Conor McGregor fighting at the UFC Apex. I mean, you've called fights there. I've never called fights at the Apex before in that type of environment. It's hard for me to believe that Conor McGregor could actually walk out at the UFC Apex, but if we're doing fights there every week for fight, you're just saying there's no chance, huh?
I don't think so, man. I mean, then again, I mean, maybe, right? Because he knows the pay-per-view would be so absolutely mind-blowing if he comes back and headlines a pay-per-view. It doesn't matter. I mean, he doesn't make money off the audience. Conor's making money off the promotion and off the sales of the event. And he's a guy that likes a challenge, right? Despite how anybody feels about him, he likes to be pushed and challenged in weird ways. And that might be something he might want to, you know, take on. He's been saying he's in shape and all that, but I think they'd rather wait and also sell out an arena and sell a bajillion pay-per-views than put him at the Apex. I mean, it's just, and who would he fight at the Apex? Man, that's, I see him waiting until fall, winter, or man. I tell everybody, shut it off. I don't want to watch it anymore right now. I get the facts. I find out what the numbers are. I get the bare bones of it. But I'm getting so much information thrown at us. You can tell that the media is just taking this, and I'm not saying they're lying, but when you're just constantly hit with the negativity, nobody's talking about, the nurses and the doctors that are killing it, or like the good discoveries that we have, or how far along maybe some medications are coming. Right. It's just constantly dead. This many people are dead. This is happening. So I'm so over the news.
It's negative. It's politicized. Back in 2001, my senior thesis.
Hey, fuck you too, whoever that is on there.
Tell him. See, I do. Felder versus
come say that to my face.
Felder versus the social media trolls is
I
like
would break every bone in every one of their faces, John. That's what they don't see. They see the nice guy, but they don't know the crazy in me. The Grace Fairy's going to come out on these motherfuckers someday when they say something to my face. Anyway.
See, and I know the crazy, and I know the guy who was ready for 7 rounds against Barboza and Hooker both, but I was just going to say the most one-sided matchup, I think, in mixed martial arts history is Felder against these trolls, and your willingness to engage always makes me smile. So I don't even know what the fuck I was saying because that's the highlight of the show.
I know,
right
I just
there.
got
Merrow,
ripped off.
Just fucking cut it up. Throw it up on social media. That's about it. Are you on board with starring in a Chuck Norris biopic once his fighting career is over? That one from MC Patel. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world, Paulie.
Bro, it's so funny that people have finally started coming out. Ever since I grew my beard out, right, the Chuck Norris stuff. 100% I would want to play some kind of Chuck Norris biopic. Also, my first amateur fight. These goofy commentators for New Breed Fighting Championships in Atlantic City, if there's any East Coast MMA guys on here right now, knows exactly what I'm talking about. All the guys that are currently from the East Coast probably made their way through it or cornered at an event or had a special appearance there. It was all amateur, no professional fights. All amateur. They would do like 15 fights a night. I made my debut there, and the first thing these guys said is like, man, he's like a young Chuck Norris. And I didn't even have a beard back then. So how sick would that be, bro?
Yeah. Somebody else chiming in that you look like Jason Bateman from Ozark. I don't see that one as much, but I can understand why maybe.
I've been told I look like his closeted father or whoever that is in the thing. I don't watch the show.
Oh, okay. That's who they're talking about. Okay. Yeah.
And I retweeted the thing, and then my friends were like, you don't watch the show, do you? And I was like, no. They're like, he's like extremely closeted and angry about it. I was like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I watched the first season a long time ago. I'm excited to catch up with the rest of the world. I honestly, one of my favorite shows that I've seen in a while.
Dude, the new thing I'm watching. Oh, are you about to say your new favorite thing?
No. Go ahead.
Have you seen Wild Wild Country on Netflix?
No, I'll write it down right now.
This happened, man. This happened in like buying this plot of land in Oregon, Antelope, Oregon, like nothing town, like 50 people, literally 50 people, and build this fucking compound, arm themselves, create their own city, have their own police force, their own post office, their own government. They're voting, they registered, and they were getting close to being so big that they could start voting and taking over councils, and then eventually the state of Oregon. And then the shady stuff they were doing starts coming to light, and the government finds out, and it's all about the kind of check it out.
Your teammate, great pro fighter Craig Eckelberg, just chimed in. He's like, stop with the wild country. He wants you to stop with the wild.
Dude, that's it though. I want to see. I wanted to see where That's next.
All right, Chael Sonnen, I guess, was the ringleader of the Wild Country, Cody's telling me. So, all right, I have a few other things I need to get with you on, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't chomping at the bit to go attack whoever has called me north of 30 times now on this call.
And it's FaceTimes?
FaceTimes, right? So I'm having to decline each one, which pauses the video, and I am at the height of annoyed right now, but trying to trudge onward. So Ally Aquinta is a fight that keeps coming around. And I think a lot of people are asking, Darnell Giovanni wants to know where you think you fit in the lightweight picture. All bets are on the table, obviously. We need May 9th to clear for you, which is something we talked about, right? We need to see what happens in theory between Justin and Tony. But Iaquinta, I guess, is a guy who was on the radar before. I mean, where is your appetite for that fight if it were to come around again?
I said it even after my last fight, once I started backing off of the retirement stuff, that I love that fight. I feel like that's a fight that's been meaning to happen for a long time. We were scheduled a couple times, and the last time that we were scheduled, it was neither of our faults that it didn't happen. Al got the huge opportunity to fight Habib, and I got paid to watch, basically, that night. And it's just, he's one of those guys. He's a New York guy. I'm a Philly guy. It's just meant to be. I love that fight. But I know he mentioned he wants to fight in May. He's like ready to go. And I just yesterday got the word from Dr. D, the UFC. They got my scans. My face is good to go. No, the fractures are healed. But I just got that, and I have not had a sparring session. I have not had a grappling session since my fight. So
right.
I've done tons of cardio, tons of lifting, bag work. Even I have a guy holding pads for me. I won't even say who. I don't want people to be like, oh, you shouldn't be seeing anybody. But I've been just doing that. Pads, bag work, running, lifting, and lots of cycling. So I'm thinking summer for me. If he wants to wait until summer, then I think that fight just made itself. Right.
I agree. So as a lot of us have followed your career, and I've had the chance to get to know you and become your friend as you've gone from sort of, top 30 guy to bona fide UFC lightweight contender. And I think a lot of your friends, myself included, kind of prioritize that main event for you. We really wanted you to
Sorry, I just saw Pitmaster says your face is far from healed. Well, at least the fractures.
Love you, Pitmaster. John Hackelman, one of the best out there. But a lot of us as your friends sort of prioritize that main event because we wanted you to be able to prove to the world that you're a 5-round championship level fighter and wanted you to get the shine and the poster and everything that comes with it. Now, we didn't expect a global pandemic to intervene like a week after your fight. But I do believe, as I'm reading these comments and hearing these people call you a legend, and we can't even bring up the Hooker fight without people talking about it being a robbery. I mean, do you feel that shine since your first UFC main event, and how have you sort of digested everything that experience overseas was mentally?
Man, I keep trying to relive it every day a little bit, looking at photos, especially since everything that's been happening. It's just I miss it. That's one of the things that makes me want to come back so much is I had that opportunity and then all hell broke loose. I expected to be on the road with you guys, being able to enjoy a little bit, take some time off and see the family. And then suddenly we were just thrust into quarantine and it's been crazy. But since things are so crazy, I really wanted main events, nothing but main events. Now right. I'm willing to negotiate. I'm willing to do a main event. I'm willing to do a 5 rounds for one of these no audience Apex shows, but 5 rounds with no audience.
Right.
And training being limited, tough. But 3 rounds,
yeah,
I can be in shape for 3 rounds. No problem. You know what I mean? I can fight balls out for 3 rounds pretty much right now if I had to. Would it look pretty? No, it would not be pretty, but I could tough it out and fight with grit for 15 minutes, especially now that I've done 25 right. And I know what that takes to get there. It's like, all right, you do half of that and you can fight. So
and do 25, by the way, with early adversity and having an eye essentially taken out of the equation pretty early on in the fight. So I have no doubt that if you had to go 15 hard on May 9th, might not be your most technical performance.
I wouldn't make weight though.
Right. Well, that's okay. No one's asking you to make weight.
100%. May 9th, there is zero chance in the universe. You could have 6 guns to my head all for the next few weeks and tell me I had to make 155, and I don't think that would happen.
So Justin Gaethje, obviously there is a foundation for a fight between the two of you. Certainly Dustin Poirier is a new name, unlike Charles Oliveira, right? I think the Charles Oliveira rematch is exciting because he's won like 7 or 8 in a row since you beat him. But I know you've talked about something fresh potentially. So is it safe to say that Iaquinta and Poirier is more appetizing you than running it back with the streaking Du Bronx?
Yeah, of course, right? As a fighter, you always want something fresh and new over someone you fought. But for example, Edson gave me my rematch, right? I didn't give him the rematch. I lost that one. So he had to give me that one that second time. But we had a competitive fight, and we had a competitive fight early in my career, and he beat me by decision. Everybody wants this Charles rematch, and I'm not saying that it's completely out of the realm of possibility,
Right.
but I smashed his face in that second round and put him out. I made him tap, and then the ref didn't recognize, and I had to beat him to the point where I almost killed him. So it's like, I'm not rushing to give him another chance to get that back. You know what I mean? He's a killer.
Right.
So if
Of
you
course.
beat somebody like that and you hold that, it's like, I'm trying to hold that. Let's be honest. I'm not lying to you guys here. I want to hold that win and make him work for it every chance I get. So yeah, that's where I feel about that one. I mean, he's killing it.
Yeah.
Killing it right now.
Right. And again, there are going to be circumstances, right? The profile of the fight, the show, everything else. But yeah, I agree. I think that the Iaquinta Poirier fights would have more legs and more steam with me for sure. Can understand though, given what Charles has done, why fans keep throwing that in your face.
Oh, of course, he's a stud. And the one time I even called one of his fights, this is like a few fights into his crazy streak since I beat him, and he thanked me on the mic. He's like, I just want to thank you for doing that, and he learned a lot. He started on his striking, and my God, stand up has looked. He's using that length. He's using his kicks, because what are you going to do? Take him down? He wants you to take him down. So he's learning that he can be so dangerous on the feet because nobody wants to play jiu-jitsu with this guy.
Right. A couple other things I want to get to with you. So there are certain lightweights, I mean, welterweights, any division, but I know there are certain lightweights out there, Paul Felder among them, that maybe at some point in your career you did a practice weight cut, but you certainly would not be doing any sort of practice weight cut 21 days before you have to do it for real to compete for a UFC title. Kenny Florian, my podcast partner, there's no fucking way he could do a practice weight cut on that timeline leading into a UFC championship fight. Now, Tony Ferguson did it. Far be it from me to question anything that man does. I have the utmost faith in his ability to make it again. But he is fighting a guy in Justin Gaethje who cuts less weight than any of you guys in the top 10. Gaethje does not drop a lot of weight. So what was your thoughts? I know you probably internalize it a little bit and think about yourself when Tony Ferguson goes out and does this. But what the hell were your thoughts when Tony did that?
It's Tony, man. David Goggins. David Goggins got a hold of this information, and he did one of his posts when he was running, and he's like, "Oh man, people are criticizing him. Oh, he made 55. People are looking at the number." He's like, "It's not about that. He's just trying to get in your head." And I see both sides of that. I think, David is an extreme athlete. He does these crazy things. Extreme military guy, but if you're fighting again and that scheduled fight is already set, that's a lot on your body to do that, rehydrate, and then go do it again and then fight 25 minutes. So I see what Tony was doing, but I still, at the end of the day, I think it was just unnecessary. But props to him. I mean, he's a savage.
And he is so unorthodox in terms of the way he approaches his training that it's hard for me, certainly, I mean, for you, you're a credentialed, elite, world-class professional athlete. For me, it's hard for me to have a strong opinion about it one way or the other, because I got Eddie Bravo in one ear telling me that this dude trains for 6 hours without so much taking a sip of water. So what, am I going to question his decision to do this, 3 weeks before a title fight? Exactly. Unorthodox, rare in terms of a lightweight elite doing it for sure. I mean, imagine Kevin Lee. He can't make weight the night of.
No.
But there's just no fucking way for so many of these guys.
And that's the other thing too, right? There's certain guys that just, the amount that they would have to go through to do that, it's almost hospitalization. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't want to say that. Yeah, I mean, no way. There's no way I would be able to do that. So
it's funny how your broadcasting career has kind of dovetailed with your fighting career. They're both on an upward trajectory. I think if there were stock in Paul Felder, a lot of people would be buying. You have had the chance to work some of these big pay-per-view fights, and I know how excited you get. We're all fans at our core. I mean, Joe Rogan calls us professional fans, and that's really what we are. So what are your thoughts then, as someone who's called the biggest fights in the world, but also someone who's worked Dana White's Contender Series in a small atmosphere with very few fans? What are your thoughts on the high-profile fights, title fights like Ferguson, Gaethje, and potentially Cejudo, Cruz happening in that type of environment with no crowd noise whatsoever?
Man, just like this situation we're in now, this is very much on uncharted waters, because even at the apex when I do Contender Series, there's still
somebody there.
There's some crowd, and I know we'll obviously have, let's say it's me, you, and Joe, right? That's not the crowd that's calling this one, but if it's just us, how many other people could be there if it's just us employees? I mean, I know there's a few people around us. We got some ring. Are we even going to have ring girls? Who's there? So even if we were all just like, yay, I mean, for a Tony Ferguson and Justin, for Cejudo, it's going to be eerie and strange. But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. We might be pleasantly surprised. I don't know. I mean, we did it in Brazil, but that was not this caliber.
Seem to be the type of guy who, if they told you, hey man, it's got to be only Duke, you can't bring anybody else with you in the corner, you don't seem to be the type of guy that would get super pensive about it and overthink it, right? I know those guys have tremendous value, but let me ask you this. If they could be with you in the back, right, but then not make the walk and be there with you, you'd only get a cut man in one corner, man. Then that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as I could have, like, for example, now the way I've been doing things, Craig's always with me, and Craig is more of Eckelberg's my teammate, he's my sparring partner. He's a guy that we just beat each other up all camp, and then he's one of the bodies that I use, and obviously he gives advice, he coaches in the corner, but he's like, you know how people bring their emotional support, and he's like my emotional support friend. You know what I mean? Like, he constantly makes sure that I'm not losing my goddamn mind the whole time.
Right.
Then I got Ian, who's there just purely to keep me calm, keep me, eating. And no matter how heavy I am, that dude's like, oh, that's easy, man. Money. Yeah, that's good. So I need those guys at least with me, not necessarily to go to the cage. And same with Daniel Wanderlei. Like, I want him there, and my coaches in Philly. Yeah, it would be tough, but I could do it with just Duke yelling at me for sure.
Yeah. All right. And then two more things before we get out of here. The NFL draft is tonight, and this is one of the best days of the year for me. I preferred it when it was all 7 rounds on Saturday beginning at noon Eastern time, but round 1 is tonight. The Philadelphia Eagles picking 21st overall, by the way. Tommy's locked in. I mean, are you and Tommy going to be texting during the draft tonight, or are you going to be watching TV?
I don't know shit about drafts or none of that.
You're not going to even be watching, are you?
I sit and watch it when the games are on, and I root for the
Candido setting up a Zoom meeting. Our UFC producer, Zach Candido, setting up a Zoom meeting for us tonight to watch the first round of the NFL draft. So I'll get out of bedtime a little bit. And this is, something on the sports calendar. I can bet the draft tonight. I haven't placed a bet on sports in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And then last thing, we might get to the cheesesteak question, time permitting, but I heard from Dominic Cruz right before we came on, and, in a good mental place, working hard. In all likelihood, he's competing for the belt here in a couple weeks. He has been able to sort of develop some footwork stuff. You got people out there mimicking his footwork, and that started to take off for him. But, dude, I just have to tell you, right, and I've had a lot of anxiety and emotions calling your fight, even though once you guys start, everything's fine. But, I've never prepared to call a Dominic Cruz fight in my life. I don't have an old Dominic Cruz fighter card to cheat off of. I've never called a fight. It's a complete blank slate. And knowing the way he is, the way he's going to nitpick me for every goddamn utterance, it's like – people are asking me, how are you going to prepare? I don't fucking know how to prepare.
Oh, wow. You've never had to call
not one time.
A Dom fight. Wow.
So because he was fighting for the titles when I was the backup guy.
Yeah, you were the new guy. Yeah.
And he's injured most of my pay-per-view career. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. If you got any advice, you can fucking text me.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, have I?
Yeah.
I haven't called this stuff either.
Yeah,
I haven't called Dom stuff either.
Well, right, because when was your UFC debut calling fights? Do you recall? DC's was October 1st, 2016.
I know that I called them.
Pittsburgh with me and Dom, maybe, or no?
Pittsburgh was the first time that I joined you guys, and I did 4 fights, and that was Rockhold and Branch. And then I called the first full one I did was either with you in Virginia,
Fucking
or
Norfolk kid, yeah.
in Norfolk, or with Brendan in Fresno. I don't know which one of them came first.
Yeah. All right. And last thing before we let you fly. So, how do you get your cheese prepared?
How do I do my cheese? Is that what you said?
Yeah, cut out. How do you get your cheesesteak prepared?
So I do the onions. If it's late at night and I'm drunk and I'm at Pat's or Gino's, I'll do a whiz wit. I'll do the onions and cheese whiz, just as sloppy and easy. But normally I like provolone and onions. Sometimes I'll even do mushrooms on there if I'm getting fancy, if I'm getting a cheesesteak at home. But
that's exactly.
And I will crush a chicken cheesesteak quite often as well, man. Yeah. There's a lot of chicken cheesesteaks in Philly as well. So if you haven't had one of them, try that sometime too.
You struck me as a grilled onions provolone guy. I mean, a couple beers, maybe go cheese whiz, but I get it.
Yeah, if it's 3 a.m, cheese whiz it is.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, glad I gave you the extra hug on March 7th, because I probably won't be able to hug you in 2020, but hopefully I'll see you from 6 to 10 feet at some point, maybe even as soon as.
Have you talked about that? Have you guys talked about that? When you're calling the fights, are you social distanced?
We have talked about that. Again, a lot of things are, well, I mean, I would not expect Joe Rogan to be sitting to my immediate right. I'll tell you that. There will be some space. So it's crazy. It's crazy. You mentioned Octagon Girls, something I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably get one. You do one.
Right.
She just has a heavy workload on that night. I don't know what you do.
Heavy workload. Walking around the cage.
Well, let's see. 13
They're going to
fights.
be mad at me if they ever hear that.
Yeah. Hey, all right, buddy. Love you. Have a great rest of the week. And
too.
we will, I guess we'll talk to you next Thursday, one way or the other.
Yeah, and let me know. Hit me up personally about what's going on when you guys, whatever you can tell me about this, because I am potentially working for ESPN. I talked to Glenn, and they're sending stuff to my house to be filmed here. Oh. So if this goes, I'm a go too. I'll be there talking to you guys. So I'm working.
You're getting all that high level equipment sent your way. That's a beautiful thing.
I was like, where? And they're like, we might have some guys have to come and do it for you. I'm like. And they're like, they'll follow social distancing protocol. I sent them pictures of my house. I'm like, yeah. Where are you going to social distance in my crib? I got this little townhouse. I was like, you need social distancing shit.
They're going to try to overtake your new gym. You're going to be like, you can have any room in the house, but you can't have this closet.
Not the Peloton room.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Hey, have a great week. Man. We'll talk to you next Thursday, all right?
You too, man. Good luck.
There he is, the Irish Dragon, the Iron Lung, Paul Felder.